Uh, Staff, we're good to go. We're recording.
We are recording and ready to go. Good morning, everyone.
Good
Good
morning,
morning.
everybody.
Morning.
Good morning.
So, good morning, everybody. The time is 11:37. I'll call the October 17th, 2024 Planning Board meeting to order. We have the following board members with us. Our Vice Chair Bailey. Good morning, Ms. Bailey.
Good morning.
We have Commissioner Washington,
Good morning.
Commissioner Giraldo,
Good morning.
and Commissioner Dorner.
Hello.
And I am Chair Shapiro. As we move forward to the business at hand, please note that the deadline for all participant pre-registration and for all submission of materials and exhibits was 12 noon on the Tuesday before this planning board meeting. Registered speakers may join the meeting with a link provided the email provided by the planning board office, or listen by phone by utilizing the call-in number, which was provided in the email as well. And of course, anyone may tune in to watch our proceedings via live stream. If you wish to speak or become a person of record, you may use our online web form, which you will see before you. The information related to that. In addition to our commissioners, we are joined by our senior counsel, Delisa Coleman. We have our planning board administrator, Jessica Jones, our senior technical hearing writer, Joe Parsons, and our acting development review division chief, Sherry Connor, amongst others. And Mr. Flanagan and Mr. Croner helping us with technology behind the scenes quite ably as always. So we're going to take up the items as listed on the agenda, with one exception. We're going to take up items. Hold on one sec. We're going to take up items 11 and 12 as our first regular agenda items. So first item is our commissioners, under commissioners items, we have a resolution of appreciation for a dear friend and colleague and somebody that we have all known quite well. We have a retirement, and this is a resolution of appreciation for Alvin McNeil. Alvin was the Deputy Director of Administration and Development with the Department of Parks and Recreation. He retired from the commission effective September 1st with 20 years of service in various roles within the Department of Parks and Rec and the Planning Department as well. He managed the preparation and adoption of the 2040 Master Plan for Parks and Open Space and Recreation. He managed the agency's 2014 and 2020 re-accreditation with the Commission for the Commission Accreditation of Parks and Recreation Agency, the CAPRA process. He helped work to secure funding for the Tucker Road replacement ice rink. He's managed any number of large projects, including our SARC, our Southern Area Aquatics and Recreation Complex, Peppermill, Kentland, Westphalia Community Centers. He secured feasibility studies for the amphitheater, the tennis complex, the hospital site, and even with repurposing Showplace Arena. I want to thank Alvin on behalf of all of us for his many, many significant contributions over the years, for his leadership, for his mentorship, for his very, very sage wisdom, impeccable advice, his good taste in art, for all these things. He really has been a great champion for the commission. So I want to wish him a happy retirement, and we're going to be honoring him next week, and I'm looking forward to that as well. And commissioners, I'm not sure if you have anything you want to add to that before we move on.
I do have a brief comment, Mr. Chair. I want to publicly thank Alvin for his very professional work with the commission, focusing on his undergraduate motto of truth and service. And it was always a delight to work with Alvin. So I wish him well in his future endeavors.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. All right, if there's no
Chair,
further... Yes, Mr.
Yeah,
Gerald.
I'd like to. I want to share in the comments of Vice Chair Bailey. I've always enjoyed working with Alvin. He's a pleasure to work with. Very diligent and hardworking. Thank you.
And
Okay.
I'm associating myself with my colleagues' comments as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah, I'll do the same as well and jump on the bandwagon. And I imagine that Director Tyler is very happy that he was able to convince Al to stay on and to
Yeah.
help he was transitioning in. I know his knowledge and experience and everything were very vital to a smooth transition as he was getting up.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm going to
And,
see this
uh,
happen. I can-
Bill Tyler, you're not on mute.
he's that excited.
I know his ears were burning. You called him out.
Yeah. But no, I
no.
definitely wish Al a good time in retirement.
Indeed, indeed.
I
Yes.
appreciate all the comments, and yes, Director Tyler was very happy to keep him from retiring one or two more times, and he's been a true asset. So, commissioners, with that, I'd look for a motion to approve the resolution of appreciation for Alvin McNeil.
Motion to approve resolution for Alvin McNeil.
I second.
Got a motion by Vice Chair Bailey, a second by Commissioner Washington. If there's no further discussion, I will call the roll. Vice Chair Bailey,
Vote aye.
Commissioner Washington,
I vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo,
Vote aye.
Commissioner Dorner.
But
I vote as well. The ayes have it 5-0. Item 2 on our agenda is the draft minutes from October 10, 2024. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve draft minutes.
Second.
Got a motion by Vice Chair Bailey, a second by Commissioner Washington with no discussion. I will call the roll. Vice Chair Bailey,
Vote aye.
Commissioner Washington,
I vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo,
I vote aye.
Commissioner Dorner.
I
I vote as well. The ayes have it 5-0. 3A, we have no legislative updates and approvals. Item 3B, we have an executive session. Staff, we are going into executive session. That's correct? Ms. Coleman?
That is correct, sir.
Okay, all right. So pursuant to the general provisions article of the Annotated Code of Maryland, Article 3-305, subsection B3, a closed session is proposed to discuss the acquisition of real property for a public purpose and matters related thereto, and for the purpose of protecting the Commission's negotiating position. I would look for a motion to go into executive session.
So
Motion.
moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Washington, a second by Vice Chair Bailey with no discussion. I will call the roll. Commissioner Washington,
I vote aye.
Vice Chair Bailey,
Vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo,
Vote aye.
Commissioner Dorner. I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 5-0. Staff, do we know roughly how long this executive session is going to take? No guarantees, but I would say 15 for the public. Figure we'll be back in this forum, in this venue in 15 minutes. And commissioners and appropriate staff, I will see you in executive session in just a minute. Items related to real estate and a potential property acquisition. So just to ratify the decision that we made in in closed session. I believe that is enough information. Ms. Coleman, is that good enough? Can't hear you. You're on mute.
Sorry. And that you provided direction to staff to proceed.
And we provided direction to staff to proceed with the acquisition. Okay. We'll now take up item 3C on our agenda. This is a Parks and Rec item. Rose Creek Trail Connector, grant of storm drain easement. We have Mr. Sun, who will be giving a staff presentation on this item. Good morning, Mr. Sun. You're on mute, or we can't hear you. Nope. Nothing. No luck yet, Mr. Sun. Still can't hear you. Mr. Sun, I may need you to do what I did, which is move to somebody else's desk. I'm my planning board administrator for the day, as you can see.
I'm gonna.
We hear you.
Okay, good. I'm sorry. Okay.
All right, take it away. Rose Creek Connector Trail.
Good morning, Chair Shapiro, fellow planning board members. For the record, my name is Paul Sun, Land Acquisition Specialist, Department of Parks and Recreation. We're here today to request approval for granting of storm drain easement at our Rose Creek Connector Trail property. Next slide, please. The Rose Creek Connector Trail property is a linear property roughly 1,000 feet west of Maryland Route 5. And it's, for the subject area of today's presentation, it's 500 feet south of the intersection with General Lafayette Boulevard and Chadsford Road. Next slide. The south portion of General Lafayette Boulevard is not constructed and bifurcates our property. In 2019, the Planning Board approved preliminary plan of subdivision 4-18017, Enclave at Brandywine, which is adjacent to our property to the south. Next slide. As part of that development for the Enclave of Brandywine, the developer is required to construct a half section of General Lafayette Boulevard south of Chadsford Drive to access their development. With that construction, box culverts are needed to facilitate the design of the roadway. Thus, a storm drain easement is needed to Prince George's County for the continued use and maintenance of these facilities. Next slide, please. The proposed easement area will be 8,107 square feet, 0.19 acres on parcel G. Concurrently, the applicant has applied for a right of entry permit with Department of Parks and Recreation and for the disturbed area at our Rose Creek Connector Trail property. Next slide, please. The approval of the applicant's right of entry request is pending approval of this grant of easement. EPR staff recommends approval of granting this easement to Prince George's County at no cost considerations. This concludes staff's presentation. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Sun. Commissioners, any questions for staff on this item, this grant of easement? Seeing none, what is your pleasure on the item?
Move approval to grant easement to Prince George's County for Rose Creek Trail Connector.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Washington and second by Commissioner Giraldo. Any discussion on the motion? No discussion. I will call the roll. Commissioner Washington.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo.
Vote aye.
Commissioner Dorner.
Vote aye.
Vice Chair Bailey.
Vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Sun, and thanks to the rest of the Parks and Rec team. Appreciate your good work as always.
Thank you.
Next is our consent agenda, Commissioners. Is there anyone who wishes to oppose the staff's recommendations on item 4A, B, or D, or any board member who wishes to discuss any of these fine items? If not, what is your pleasure on the consent agenda?
Move approval of items on the consent agenda, sir.
Second, items 4A,
4A, 4B, and 4C.
4D.
Is that a
Yeah, A, B, and D.
A, B, and D? Absolutely.
All right, we've got a motion by Vice Chair Bailey, a second by Commissioner Washington. If there's no discussion, I will call the roll. Vice Chair Bailey.
Vote aye.
Commissioner Washington.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Dorner.
Vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo.
I vote aye, Mr. Chair.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 5-0. We'll now move to our regular agenda items. As noted, we're actually going to take up items 11 and 12 first on our agenda. Pardon me while I shuffle my paperwork.
Okay, I'm gonna do a quick sounds check.
Yes, we can hear you fine.
All right. So good morning, Chair.
Hold on one sec.
Okay.
Before we go into the hearing, before we take up I want to take up a preliminary matter first. Are you going to address the preliminary matter, or do you want me to take that up before you start? Because we're not going to. We may not hear this case. There's a request for a continuance. So, Ms. Garland, I assume you're going to be talking about the case, right?
Correct.
So hold off. Commissioners, we have a preliminary matter. I don't have it in front of me. Let me turn. Ms. Coleman, are you there?
Yes.
Okay. We have heard from Greg Smith, who's requesting a continuance for this item for a week. That is correct. Anything you want to note to us about that? I will turn to Mr. Smith and see if there's anything that he wants to add to the request. And then we'll allow Mr. Gibbs to certainly respond as well. But I'll start with you, Ms. Coleman. Anything you want to feed us on this?
Yes, my understanding is that Mr. Smith is requesting a continuance request because there was additional information submitted by the applicant after the posting of the staff report, and within the last week, I believe it was submitted perhaps yesterday. Pursuant to the rules of procedure, the zoning ordinance, there is an entitlement for a 1 week continuance if requested, if new information is submitted by either the applicant or a public agency.
Thank you. And I'll turn to you, Mr. Smith. I just want to see if there's anything that you want to add beyond what you included in your communication, your request for continuance, or you're standing on that request.
Well, I'll just point out that the request is for more than 1 week continuance. The addition of new material by the applicant and by an agency is just one grounds for a continuance, and that's a mandatory continuance if it's requested, and it's 7 days. However, there's a lot more substance to the letter, including evidence that Melissa Schweisgood presented to the planning board, I think on the 15th or early on the 16th, demonstrating that the applicant had failed to comply with clear requirements for the posting of public signs, and that the planning department had not required the applicant to comply. The signs aren't properly placed. They're single-sided. They haven't been maintained, so that they're torn off the stakes and they're flopping in the wind. I'm not sure, but I think they still include they might have the original hearing date. We know folks in the neighborhood, including the owner of the restaurant that's currently on the site, who said they didn't even know that that restaurant was threatened with being replaced by a McDonald's. That neighborhood has a very high percentage of non-English speaking residents, most of whom are Spanish speaking, as far as I know, and they're simply unaware. So for these reasons, and the reasons we've stated in the past, the fact that most of the documents that the planning department has relied on in developing a TSR and its recommendations aren't posted online for the general public to see. We only get them through public records requests, and it's nice that we get them, but most of the public doesn't even know that they exist. So let me just finish, Mr. Shapiro. Our request is actually for a continuance of more than 7 days for the reason that we stated in the record. We stand on that.
Specific request?
Well, we said at least 30 days after they have proper signage posted.
So you want 30 days because you believe the signage was not posted properly?
Excuse me?
You want 30 days because you believe the signage wasn't posted properly?
We know that it wasn't posted properly. There's photographic evidence submitted by Ms. Schweitkus and then resubmitted by us. And it's not just me. It's not just I asking for this continuance. I think 8 of us signed that letter. And we've raised these issues with the issues about the lack of availability of numerous applicant documents, submissions, and agency comments in the past. So we're just re-raising those issues. So we think 30 days after proper sign postage and after these documents are posted to the web for public review is appropriate. We leave that to you.
Thank you,
Depends
Mr.
on what kind of process you want to conduct and whether you want it to be open and inviting to the public, especially the most affected public, the folks who live in that neighborhood, work in that neighborhood, shop in that neighborhood, and own businesses in that neighborhood.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. So we have a request for the continuance. Before we go any farther, and we do want to hear from Mr. Gibbs as well, I do want staff to respond to one specific thing, because there's been some back and forth about whether the postings were adequate and done according to our rules and regs. Ms. Connor, can you weigh in on that, or perhaps Ms. Coleman or others, in terms of the signage specifically? And I'm not talking about other reasons for the new information coming in the record, but the signage one specifically.
Sure. This is Sherry Connor, for the record, with the Development Review Division. Regarding the sign posting, staff do make a determination of sign posting based on the code, which indicates that signs should be double-sided on two-way streets where they would be visible. We did receive the additional materials submitted and photographs regarding the signs along the frontage of the property. The frontage does contain 3 travel lanes separated by a median before you get to the southbound lanes. And because we don't believe that it would be visible to those southbound motorists, the signs were not required to be double-sided.
Okay, thank you. So your estimation, Ms. Coleman, please weigh in if you choose to, is that we actually have met all the requirements of the signage. Ms. Connor, I'm just confirming with you.
Oh, yes, that's correct. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Coleman, you don't have to weigh in. I'm just wondering if you have anything else to add.
I don't, but I did want to simply clarify Mr. Smith's request, since I have it before me. And on October 17th, 2024, Mr. Smith indicated that he and several other persons of record who signed the letter were requesting a rescheduling of the hearing for at least 7 days and preferably longer.
Okay, thank you. So, commissioners, unless there's any questions, I'm going to turn to Mr. Gibbs and give him a chance to weigh in as well. I am inclined to grant the request for the continuance. I want to hear what Mr. Gibbs has to say as well, and then we can make a decision. This is all preliminary matter, so the case is actually, we have not opened this public hearing. This is still preliminary matter. Mr. Gibbs, do you want to weigh in?
Mr. Chairman, before you go to Mr. Just a question. Is the sign multilingual in terms of its posting?
It's not. We're not required to do that, though we've had many discussions very recently around this, related to this specific issue. And so, perhaps we can have staff address that. I don't want to get that too caught up in this request for continuance, because it is not a requirement, though we're very mindful that it will be useful.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I'll add, I drove by the site last week and then last night. And when I was driving from the south side on Egger, crossing over, I saw the signs. It was blatantly obvious that the signs are there. I don't know, though, if you're coming on East-West Highway, I don't remember when I was coming that way how visible the sign was, because that would have been towards the back end of it. But I was definitely able to see it when I was coming on Egger and going north.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate that. Mr. Gibbs, what would you like to, I certainly want to give you the opportunity to weigh in on this.
Sure. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Edward Gibbs, an attorney with offices in Largo. I represent the applicant, McDonald's USA, LLC, in this case. First, let me say this. This is the third date that this case has been set. The first time it was set, the applicant put about 20 pages of information into the record on the Tuesday before noon of the hearing week. The opposition put approximately 295 pages in. At the second date, I think the applicant maybe put in nothing or possibly 2 or 3 pages. The opposition put in 471 pages. For this hearing, the applicant put in, I believe, around 5 pages to clarify an issue with regard to one of the conditions relating to the driveway. And lo and behold, we have 130 some pages put in by the opposition. I will say this, I agree that section 27105.05 of the prior zoning ordinance does state that if the applicant or the operating agency puts new material in after the staff report has been published, then a party of record is entitled to a 1-week continuance. This is the second time that Mr. Smith has asked for that 1-week continuance. I think at this point it goes beyond the spirit of what that ordinance message was, especially given the minimal pages and the minimal substance of what the applicant filed, just a clarification. However, I don't want to create an issue, and therefore I don't object to a 1-week continuance. I, as strongly as possible, object to a 30-day continuance. There is nothing in this record that the opposition doesn't have at this point, other than the information that we put in before noon on Tuesday of this week. To say they need more time now to look at that information, to me is, let's just say, is not accurate. I don't want this case to be delayed indefinitely. Again, it was supposed to be heard on September 26th. And a 30-day continuance is, quite frankly, abusive in my opinion, and is not going to serve any legitimate purpose. I would also note that the rule is that you post the property, and if a continuance occurs at a hearing date, and a date certain is set at that hearing for the next hearing, there is no requirement to repost the property. And that is what has happened in each instance in this case. So for all those reasons, I do not oppose a 1-week continuance, but I am vehemently opposed to a 30-day continuance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbs. Ms. Coleman, I just want to see if you want to weigh in on any of the information that you've heard, give us some legal advice on this in terms of what options we have for a continuance. And again, this is just if you have any sort of corrections, additions, or omissions that you want to make from what you've heard from the applicant and the requester.
Yes, Delisa Coleman, Senior Counsel for the record. Mr. Gibbs is correct in that there is no additional requirement to repost for the date certain that was provided in the hearing. So, and also the planning board is not required to provide any additional notice when a date certain is provided for the new date after a continuance.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Mr. Smith, you have your hand up. I'll certainly want to honor that. I would ask you to please stick to this request for a continuance and the grounds for it. But go ahead.
Oh, well, thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, they did not comply with the requirement to maintain the signs properly. That's clearly laid out in the ordinance. I think there can be some discussion as to whether or not the signs as they were posted were visible and legible by folks driving by, or certainly walking by probably, but folks driving by not. So there is that issue. I know that Mr. Gibbs is feeling aggrieved here because we've asked for continuances. I'll point out that this project was placed on an indefinite hold, and he had months to go back and forth with planning staff, and did so, and was filing materials even not too long before the first hearing date. and we operate entirely as volunteers. The new material may have been submitted before noon on Tuesday, but it wasn't shared with the public until yesterday afternoon. So that's another dynamic here. There's no perfect process here, but we're looking for a fair process that allows more members of the community, including the non-English speaking members of the community who live in that community and work in that community, to be heard. So that is the basis of the longer request. That, and we think the desirability of having a lot of these documents that staff relied on posted online for public review and download. So otherwise, time can be burned while we wait for a Public Information Act request, no matter how hard staff works to turn around the response to the request. I saw Melissa Schweitzer has her hands up.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. And Ms. Coleman, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Smith made the request for the continuance, so that's what's before us is hearing from Mr. Smith and Mr. Gibbs, correct?
The request was signed by Greg Smith, Joanne Wozniak, Mary Beth Shea, Melissa Schweitzer.
Okay.
Forgive me if I'm butchering these names.
No, that's okay. But let me pause you
7.
there. If she signed on to the letter, then I want to give her a chance to, if she has a specific comment or question on this as well, that works for me. Ms. Schweitzer? I can't see you, though. I saw your hand raised, but I don't see or hear you. Oh, there we go. Okay. Yes.
Hey, so I did just want to clarify on the signage. Again, the signage, I believe it was Mr. Doran that talked about the sign that you can see from Agar. That's actually the only sign that is. So there are two issues here. There's maybe you don't need double-sided signage, but the code does say signage should be oriented to maximize visibility to motorists. The sign in front of the site is parallel to East-West Highway. What driver is going to make a 90-degree turn to read a sign that it's to the right of the entrance? So they're going to be looking, if they're turning into the entrance, they're going to be looking at the entrance at that driveway. They're not looking to the right just before it, because thank God there's not a bike lane there. If you are driving from East-West Highway, to the east, there's no sign. You are looking at the back of the sign, because that sign between Agar and East-West that Mr. Doran's referring to, sorry, I'm saying your name wrong, not in retaliation for my name being butchered. It happens all the time, and I'm not bothered by it. But that sign is also only single-sided. So if that is supposed to be one of the two legal signs, again, it is visible to two-way traffic. It's not, again, it's just there was not a real effort made to ensure that these signs are oriented for visibility, and that's disappointing. And it's disappointing that staff accepted, as I understand, you do require photos. You do require the applicant to send photos 15 days beforehand. But I'm surprised that these signs were accepted, because they are not oriented to maximize visibility to drivers, even the drivers that are driving right along the site. That sign that had been turned 90 degrees, actually flipping in the wind, it's a little more visible right now. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So, commissioners, we've heard from the folks who made the request. We've heard from Mr. Gibbs. I'm inclined to grant a continuance on this item. Based on what I'm hearing, I'm comfortable with a 7-day continuance. I'm curious to see where you all are. So, for commissioners, let's open this up for discussion on this preliminary matter.
Yeah, well, Mr. Chairman, I'm fine with the 1-week continuance.
Same here. I'm also fine with the 1-week continuance.
I'm fine with the 1 week.
The 1 week continuance.
Okay.
I just have a question. Why do we need? Why is more than a week needed?
I think what we've heard is that there's a desire. Yeah, but I don't want to open it back up, Commissioner.
Okay.
Right. So.
Okay.
I mean, I don't want to. I respect your authority on this, and if you want that additional information, I think we can get it. So, if you want to hear from the requesters about why they want more than 1 week, it's fine. If that's what we need.
I'd like to hear, at least give them an opportunity. Yes.
That's fine. Mr. Smith, Ms. Schweitzer.
Melissa, do you want to speak to this first? Do you want me to speak to it?
So I believe that the 30 days is specific to having proper signage posted for 30 days. So if the commission agrees that the signage was not posted according to code, then it would follow that you would require the applicant to post proper signage for 30 days before a hearing, which would reset that 30-day timeline. That is the reason for the 30 days.
Thank you for that. It's clear and direct. I appreciate that. Anything you want to add, Mr. Smith?
No, she distilled it quite well. They weren't properly posted. We've got evidence in the record they weren't properly posted, and so they should be reposted 30 days prior to a hearing.
Thank you. And commissioners, what I'm hearing from staff is that the signs were properly posted.
Correct. I think that's what I was just going to comment on from staff as well as legal counsel. So. Right.
Okay. All right. So what's before us again is a request for the continuance. I'm comfortable with the 7 days. If there's a strong push for longer, I'll certainly entertain that. But I think that I'm comfortable with the 7-day continuance.
Let me just jump in just real quick. I'll say that I'm fine with the 7 days continuance on this. I think the signage is fine. It was perfectly clear to me yesterday when I was driving from the south side. I don't know how clear it is driving from East-West Highway because I wasn't paying attention. I was looking at traffic and making sure I wasn't going to get in an accident.
Thank you.
When I was driving from East-West Highway and going on to Egger the week before. So I can't attest to whether or not that was clear, but certainly from driving from the south going north, it was fine. I don't think our procedures are specific in some ways about saying like what angles they have to be at, but yeah, I agree with the opposition that it would be nice if you had it visible. The challenge is though, this is not, it doesn't say specific angles in the guidance, and our staff are saying that it was posted. So I would side with staff on that issue. I'm fine with the week continues, but I'm not going to be here next week. So since it's been delayed so many times that I would kind of want to see what it was going to say, but I may end up missing it out on it. And I agree with Mr. Gibbs that I think it's getting, for lack of better words, a little bit ridiculous in some of the extensions on this. The letter of the law say that you can request a week continuance, but it's not hard to read 2 pages or 4 pages. We have to go through hundreds of pages that the opposition put into the document, and by all means I will, because that's part of what we do, but there comes a point where we just need to hear the case. And I'm certainly partial to language challenges and stuff like that. I come from a bilingual household, and we speak and use up to 4 languages in our house, but at some point you got to come to the table and stop delaying stuff. So I would rather that this go forward and have a hearing and not keep delaying it if we can.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other comments, thoughts, commissioners? 1 week, 2 weeks?
I support
1 week.
the 1 week extension.
Okay,
Great.
all right. So then it seems like with a straw poll we have consensus. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the request to continue DSP-22001, DDS-23001, and AC-23017 to Planning Board hearing date of October 24th, 2024.
Second.
We've got a motion by Commissioner Washington, a second by Vice Chair Bailey. Is there any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, I'll call the roll. Commissioner Washington?
I vote aye.
Vice Chair Bailey?
Vote aye.
Commissioner Dorner?
Vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo?
I vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 5-0. Thank you, everybody, all interested parties, applicants, parties in opposition. We'll see you in a week on this one. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, now we'll move to item 5 on our agenda. This is Countywide Planning Division Mandatory Referral 2020 MRF 2023-003 City of Bowie Ice Rink. This case was continued from September 12th, 2024. Ms. Christine Osei will give the staff presentation. And we have representatives from the City of Bowie as well. Just making sure I didn't miss anything. Nope. We'll turn to staff for a presentation.
Okay, greetings. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chair, members of the board. I'm Christine Osei, Countywide Planning Division. Item 5 on the agenda is a proposed City of Bowie ice rink located at the existing Bowie Golf Course on 7.5 acres. The project was accepted on May 7, 2024, with a waiver letter from the applicant for a planning board hearing of September 12. Due to the delay in getting comments from other agencies, State Highway and Department of Public Works, the applicant revised the waiver to extend the time to today, October 17th. Page 9 of the staff report outlines exactly what staff did between that time of September 12 till now. Notices were sent out to adjoining owners and area civic association to inform them of the date change of today. And I would like to make a request to the board, since there are no issues and there's no known opposition, I could move and do a shorter presentation instead of just going through a lengthy one. At the pleasure of the board.
I don't feel a strong urge for a very lengthy presentation. Commissioners, anyone?
No, fine with the short version.
Okay. So if we can move to slide 9, please. Slide 9 shows the site plan. You on the slide 9? Oh, slide 9. Okay. That's the site, the 7.5 acres in the reserve open space, which is where the arena is proposed to go. It's mostly sparsely wooded and gently sloping. And so this is where the site is going to be. It borders 197, and to the south of that is the existing golf course. Next slide. The site plan shows the outline of the proposed arena with parking south of the site, showing 156 parking spaces with 6 ADA compliant parking spaces. Next slide. The landscape plan shows a wooded buffer provided to the south of the site along the boundaries between the golf course and the new arena, and landscape around the proposed parking spaces. Next slide. The circulation plan shows how people will get vehicles inside and outside the site with 2 access points. There's one existing access point of 197 now. There'll be a second one north of that at Lockridge Road and 197. Next slide. The new building has all of these features that are outlined on this slide. Next slide. The building is 31,107 square foot on a split level site, using the topography of the site to allow the first floor occupying the lobby and the lower level showing exactly where the ice arena is going to be located, as shown on the elevations on the slide. Next slide. This is the south frontage view of the building as you walk up or drive up. Next slide. The icing arena from the inside view. The next slide. Lobby area view. The next slide shows the hours of operation, open 7 days a week, beginning at 6 a.m. The next slide. There are 9 recommendations that staff has outlined, and out of the 9, I'll focus on 5 because recommendation number 5, it comes from the State Highway, which talks about pedestrian circulation and access on Lower Bowie Road and the construction of 5-foot sidewalk along the locations that are shown along south side of improved golf course driveway from the proposed pedestrian refuge area on Lower Bowie Road, and along north side of the driveway, heading to the west of the sidewalk of Lower Bowie Road, along the south side of the parking lot already proposed. And so the state is also asking, going back to number 4, the applicant should dedicate approximately 20 feet east part of adjacent to the side Lower Bowie Road to the Department of Public Works and Maryland Department of Transportation for future widening of the west side of the sidewalk a 10-foot shared use path, and landscape buffering adjustments. So out of the 9, I'm focusing on that because we spent a lot of time trying to deal with transportation analysis impact for the areas. And these came directly from the agencies, and I just want to highlight for the board to really see what the work that staff did and working with the applicant to update the transportation impact in the area to kind of generate these recommendations from the agencies. Staff requests the board to approve the recommendations outlined in the staff report and transmit to the applicant. The project team has representatives participating today, and they may be available for questions. And this concludes staff presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sose. Thank you for their presentation, and I appreciate you highlighting the specific recommendations that were a little bit more. There's a lot of diligence associated with it, so I appreciate that. All right, Commissioners, if there's no questions for staff, we'll turn to the representative from the City of Bowie. Is it Mr. Sickelman?
This is Dan Schlegel from Dewberry. I was going to start off, Mr. Chairman, if that's okay.
Of course, Mr. Schlegel. Take it away. Introduce yourself for the record, and the floor is yours.
Yeah, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the Planning Board. On behalf of the applicant, I am Daniel Schlegel with Dewberry Engineers, 4601 Forbes Boulevard, Suite 300, Lanham, Maryland. With me this morning is James Sickelman, Project Manager from the Department of Community Services for the City of Bowie, and Andrea Sneeringer, also from Dewberry. We're happy to be here today to review mandatory referral 2023-003 for the ice rink project the City of Bowie proposes to build on a portion of the Bowie Golf Course, an asset of land the city does own. We appreciate the collaboration and attention to detail we've received from Ms. Osei and staff throughout the review process of the project. The applicant has reviewed the staff report. We are in general agreement with the findings and recommendations. We know that we've already satisfied some of the recommendations, and we can work to implement others during the future development phases of the project. At this time, I'd like to have James Sickelman say a few words about the project on behalf of the City of Bowie, and afterwards we'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Schlegel.
Can everybody hear me?
You're a bit choppy, actually. Try again.
I'm going to turn that back off. Is that any better?
No, you're really choppy. Sorry to say. Is it just me, Commissioners, or you hear it too?
We hear it as well.
We hear it too.
Bear with me. I'm going to take out my earbuds.
We can't hear you at all, sir. We're having one of these technology days. You're about the 5th one on the list who's had problems, including me, so you're in good company.
Is that any better?
You're still a bit choppy. Try again. Say something. No. I'm going to suggest, Mr. Schlegel or Ms. Sneeringer, I'm going to suggest, I think we have pretty strong consensus on this case. I certainly would love to be able to hear the voice from the representative of the City of Bowie, but I'm not sure that is necessary for this. If you have any objection with that, I think we can just see if commissioners have any questions on this.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you. So we have no one else who signed up to speak on this beyond the folks from the applicant's team. Commissioner staff is recommending approval of transmittal of their recommendations to the applicant. Do you have any questions for staff or for the applicant?
I have a question on, can we go to the slide that has like the view of the front of the arena, the ice rink?
Slide.
Yeah. Right.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if Mr. Schlegel or somebody can give us a little bit more um, idea of like the reason for the colors. Like the colors look beautiful right there, but I get no impression of like this being an ice hockey rink. And nothing on the outside strikes me as ice hockey. So I was wondering like why you guys chose that. If there's any ability to incorporate like a stick, like an ice hockey stick and a puck or something that would like make people realize as they're looking at this building like what it actually represents. Because I love art and I live in an area that like we have murals everywhere, but I get nothing out of this except that like it looks pretty, but it doesn't give me any visual idea that like what's on the inside of it. And the inside looks fantastic, but I think there's a missed opportunity to actually convey what's on the inside of the building that you're not at all doing in the current design.
I can answer a portion of that. This is Dan Schlegel again. Just to the left of where the entrance to the building is, there's an open area that the city has been contemplating putting some artwork out there, statues that would help portray that it is an ice rink. Regarding the architecture of the building, I unfortunately am not an architect. Mr. Sickelman is an AIA registered architect, and if he could get through, I know he could probably more clearly answer your question.
I wonder, Commissioner Dorner, if since this is a mandatory referral, it might be enough for us, and I would associate myself with your remarks, it might be enough for us to say that we would like to, we would encourage them to have sort of some more visible, prominent art that speaks to what the facility is. There's nothing wrong with us throwing that into a mandatory referral, correct, team?
Correct. And it looks to me, unless I'm mistaken, to your point, to the very left of the wording, City of Bowie Ice Arena, I guess I took that to be something on the wall illustrating like people with hockey sticks. Maybe I'm just seeing it because I want to see it, but that's what it looked like to me, to your point, Mr. Schlegel, about there being some wall. That's anybody else?
It's just not hockey either. I mean, this arena will have programs for general figure skating and all kinds of other, ice hockey or ice skating related programs. So I believe that's what the art in that area would intend to portray.
Yeah, if you guys can get that across, I think that would be helpful because like just sending like we're big into finding the messaging and just visually transmitting ideas of what people are going to see if they're like as they're experiencing an environment. And maybe Commissioner Washington is right that like to the left that's what that statue is. It's hard to tell on my screen because I've got like maybe a 4x6 view of it. But I'm looking like all the colors to the right of that door, and man, if they were in the shape of like an ice skate or something, like you could keep the colors and just like put them in a different shape or figure out other ways to convey what you're at. I think that would be very much better because right now I can't tell when I'm looking at this, and I love the rest of the building. I love the interior and all the other design. I think it's awesome. But it's right here is like not what I'm getting. And I don't even know if I would be looking, if I'm coming from like the right side of the building, if I'd even see those statues coming in. So you might have a missed opportunity for branding in terms of what people can get in your facility.
Yeah, those are good points.
I think, I mean, if it's okay, commissioners, with that, since again, this is mandatory referral, I'm comfortable with including in our motion that we ask for more prominent art and design that speaks to the, what's going on inside the arena. I'm perfectly comfortable with that as part of our referral process, if you all are.
Yep.
Well, I simply was going to add, I think it depends on what each individual brings to the table as looking at this project. I just thought, oh my gosh, that's beautiful. So my interpretation is just a tad bit different, but I certainly will go along with the recommendation by the team. But I just thought it was a fabulous, colorful, but I like color.
No,
So,
I'm with you. It really pops, doesn't it?
yeah, it depends on what each individual brings to the table. So,
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Ms. Osei.
we did ask the applicant about signage, and they said they were designing signage because they didn't provide a signage packet at the entrance. If you're coming from 197, what would you see? And so we don't know whether that signage design that is yet to be brought in will have some images or some illustration of art where the places that you're going into. So that's an area that probably we could add, I don't know, maybe not looking at the building, but add the signage part of it to depict what the experience you're going to have.
Okay. All right. So I think Mr. Slagle, Mr. Sickleman, others, you've heard our questions, thoughts, comments, reactions. If we can sort of get some of that reflected into our approval. So this would be a very slight amendment to the to what we're transmitting from the applicant. Is that appropriate, Ms. Coleman, Ms. Osei?
Sure.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Great. Any other questions or comments, folks? Okay. Thank you all very much. I would look for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the recommendations of staff in addition to adding a recommendation that captures the sentiment of the discussion amongst the commissioners to the applicant. And I would ask staff and council to get together and draft that appropriately. And with that, approve transmittal of MRF-2023-003 to the applicant.
Second.
We've got a motion by Commissioner Washington, a second by Vice Chair Bailey. If there's no discussion on the motion, I'll call the roll. Commissioner Washington.
I vote aye.
Vice Chair Bailey.
Aye.
Commissioner Dorner.
Vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo.
Vote aye, but I think the building is beautiful as it is. So, Vice Chair Bailey, it's beauty is in the eyes of the beholder.
Well said.
I vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 5-0. Thanks, everybody. Mr. Sickleman, I'm sorry we didn't get to you, but I'm glad that we are supportive of this and moving the process forward. And thank you, Mr. Schlegel and team. Okay, next item on our agenda is items 6, 7, and 8. These are zoning map amendments A8427-01, A8578-01, and A8579-01, Oak Creek Club Land Bay T. Again, these are companion items. Mr. Hatcher is representing the applicant. This is a request for a continuance. There's some citizen opposition to the date of the continuance. There's citizens who are requesting a continuance to a later date. So what is before us is a request for a continuance either way. We'll start with Mr. Mitchum, who'll give a staff presentation. Then we'll turn to the applicant, and we'll see if we have other folks who've signed up to speak as well on this. Mr. Mitchum, good morning, sir.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning again, members of the Planning Board. For the record, my name is Joshua Mitchum with the Zoning Section. Items number 6, 7, and 8 before you are basic plan amendments A-A427-01, A-8578-01, and A-8579-01 for Oak Creek Club. The amendments include an increase in residential density from 1.3 dwellings per acre to 1.4 dwellings per acre, which represents an increase in the maximum number of dwelling units permitted in the LAC zone portion of the property from 52 to 76, and an increase in the maximum number of dwelling units in the RL zone from 1,096 to 1,108. No other conditions of the approved basic plans are proposed for amendment, and the request does not involve a change in the overall land area of the existing basic plans. The applicant has submitted a continuance request in a memorandum dated October 2nd, 2024 to continue the items to a new planning board hearing date of October 24th, 2024. In addition, prior to the noon deadline of Tuesday, October 15th, 2024, staff has received several emails from community members requesting that the items be continued to a new planning board date or hearing date no earlier than November 18th, 2024. Staff recommend that the planning board approve a continuance request of at least 1 week, which will start on October 24th, 2024, to allow for the 30-day minimum sign posting requirement. And this concludes staff's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for staff before we hear from the applicant? No questions, Mr. Hatcher? What would you like to bring to us on this request for continuance? And I would like you to address the citizen's request for an extended continuance, why that will or won't work for you, because we're certainly going to hear from folks on that as well, Mr. Hatcher.
Right, understood. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. My name is Chris Hatcher with the law firm CL Hatcher, with an office in Laurel, here on behalf of the applicant Carrollton Oak Creek LLC for applications A-842701, A-857801, and A-857901. The applicant is respectfully requesting a 1-week continuance, and to answer not only the citizens, at least the ones that called me directly, but also the chair, a specific request. We are requesting a 1-week continuance because, unfortunately, when we received the sign posting and when we posted it, as of today, that would be 29 days and not the 30 days required by 27.125.03A6. And so with this additional 1-week continuance, that requirement, which states a period of at least 30 continuous days, we will exceed the 30 continuous days. It'll actually be 36 days by next Thursday. So to the end, unlike certain applications or the McDonald's application before that I thought Mr. Gibbs did an excellent job on, we didn't submit any new information. We accept the conditions as proposed by staff. So the staff report, which has been out for 29 days today, will have been out for 36 days at that point, and the requirements associated with the staff reports and any new information aren't necessarily applicable. New information aren't applicable, but also the citizens and stakeholders which are requesting an additional 30 days, there's not going to be any new information from the applicant. They will have had the information for 36 days. I'm not entirely sure the applicant's going to submit any new information. So although we certainly have the right, consistent with the rules and procedures, we didn't exercise that right this week, and I don't anticipate us exercising that right this week.
Thank you, Mr. Hatcher. Appreciate that. Commissioners, any questions for the applicant on this? I am going to see if we have folks who signed up who are asking for the additional extension, so we may hear from Mr. Hatcher after that. But any questions to Mr. Hatcher at this point? No? Okay. Do we have anyone else who the requesters of the extension, the approval of the continuance to November 18, 2024? Do we have folks who have made that request and would like to speak on that request? Anyone? I want to make sure I'm not missing anybody, so let's give it a second. I see some folks who signed up to speak, but I don't know if any of them are here. The only one who I imagine is not with the applicant's team is Dwight Ward. No,
Mr. Chairman, there's a Tamika Davis who just raised her hand.
Oh, Ms. Davis.
Good evening or good afternoon, everyone. I think we're on board. I'm the property manager for Oak Creek Club. We're on board with the continuance, but I am concerned about the count for the number of homes agreed upon in the plan.
All right. So your issue, Ms. Davis, is with the development, the request for continuance you're supportive of, though. You're okay with?
I'm okay with the continuance. That's fine.
Right.
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. And so in terms of our process, when this comes before us, then you hopefully will have ample time. We look forward to hearing your voice and your views on the project itself. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So it sounds like what's before us, despite what we have in writing, what's before us is the simple request for continuance of 1 week, though there was written material requesting a longer one. Commissioners, I certainly follow our collective lead on this. I'm inclined to accept the request for the 1 week continuance and go with that. But I'm looking forward to hearing if you all have the different views on that. And if you don't, then what is your pleasure on this item?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the request for continuance for A-8427-01, A-8578-01, A-8579-01 to planning board hearing date of October 24th, 2024.
Second.
We're under discussion. I may have made a mistake. What is staff's recommendation on the date of the continuance, Mr.?
Yes, Mr. Chair. So our recommendation is approving a continuous request of at least 1 week.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So you are okay. All right, that's fine. So then the motion before us is a 1 week continuance.
Yes.
Motion was made by Commissioner Washington. I didn't catch who made the second. Was it Ms. Bailey?
Vice
Yes.
Chair Boulay.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the roll. Commissioner Washington,
I vote aye.
Vice Chair Bailey,
Vote aye.
Commissioner Dorner,
Vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo.
Vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 5-0. This is a request for a 1 week continuance is granted till October, whatever date 1 week is from now.
24th.
24th.
24.
All right.
Thank you, commissioners, very much. I might show up to the next one with a mutton chop just to be a little bit closer to Commissioner Dorner, even though I know that's not.
We'll look forward to it.
I seem to recall a year ago you had a lot of facial hair that you shaved off at one point, so we might have to have a competition to some manner.
It's almost November. Don't tell me. Thank you all very much.
Mitchell, you're going to get in on this one too, right?
Thank you all.
All right, thank you. Next is item 9 on our agenda. This is a preliminary plan of subdivision 4-24002 Bird Lawn. This case was continued from September 12th, 2024 Planning Board meeting. Mr. Haller is representing the applicant. Ms. Gupta is going to be giving a staff presentation. I don't believe there's any opposition on this one. It is an evidentiary hearing, though, so if I need to swear folks in, I'll swear folks in at the appropriate time. We'll start with Ms. Gupta, and then we'll hear from Mr. Haller.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Doing a quick sound check.
Yep, we can hear you fine.
Great, thank you. Again, good afternoon, everyone. For the record, I'm Mridula Gupta with the subdivision section. Item number 9 on the agenda is the preliminary plan of subdivision 4-24002, titled Bird Lawn. The subdivision proposes 5 lots and 1 parcel for the development of 5 single-family detached dwelling units. This application is supported by an approved certificate of adequacy ADQ-2024-002. This case was continued from the Planning Board hearing date of September 12, 2024 to this date. The applicant requested a variation from Section 24-123A5 of the prior subdivision regulations for dedication of primary road right-of-way less than 50 feet in width. The applicant also requests a variance from Section 25-122B1G of the 2024 Woodland and Wildlife Habitat Conservation Ordinance for the removal of 3 specimen trees, and a variance to Section 25-121C3 of the Woodland and Wildlife Habitat Conservation Ordinance for not providing the afforestation threshold on site. All these 3 requests are discussed further in the technical staff report. No community member has provided any feedback to staff or signed up to speak. In conclusion, based on the findings presented in the technical staff report, staff recommend that the Planning Board approve this preliminary plan of subdivision 4-24002, Type 1 Tree Conservation Plan TCP 1-026-2024, variation from Section 24-123A5, and variances from Section 25-121C3 and Section 25-122B1G, subject to the findings and conditions in the staff report. This concludes staff's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gupta. Commissioners, any questions for staff? No questions. Mr. Haller, turn to you. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Thomas Haller, an attorney with offices in Largo on behalf of the applicant. This is a rather simple matter. It's my client purchased the property to provide for a small infill residential development. As you can see from the aerial photograph, the property is surrounded by similarly sized residential lots. A total of 5 lots are proposed in this instance, and we fully concur with the findings of staff and staff's recommended conditions, and would appreciate the board's approval of the preliminary plan. Be glad to answer any questions, and we do have members of our engineering team on as well if there are any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Haller. Commissioners, questions for the applicant? No questions. Do we have anyone who has signed up to speak on this? I don't see anyone on the staff list. Beyond folks who are associated with the applicant's team. Seeing no one, then commissioners, I will close this public hearing and turn to you for deliberation and or action.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the findings of staff and approve preliminary plan 4-24002, TCP 1-026-2024, variation from section 24-123A5, excuse me, and variances section 25-122B1G and section 25-121C3, along with the conditions as outlined in staff's report.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Washington and a second by Vice Chair Bailey. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, I will call the roll. Commissioner Washington.
I vote aye.
Vice Chair Bailey.
Vote aye.
Commissioner Dorner.
Vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo.
I vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 5-0. Thank you, Ms. Gupta. Thank you very much, Mr. Haller.
Thank you very much.
All right, move on to item 10 on our agenda. This is Countywide Planning Division designation of two Prince George's County historic sites, Mount Hermon Masonic Temple, which is documented property 68-01095 and 4207 Gallatin Street, Hyattsville, and Myatico House, documented property 68-030-01 6911 Wells Parkway, Hyattsville. We have a staff presentation by Mr. Gross. I don't know if we have anyone else who signed up to speak on this. We'll turn to you, Mr. Gross, to see if we have any moving parts on this one that need to be laid out for us.
Thank you very much, and I'm just doing a quick sound check.
Yes, we can hear you fine. Thanks for checking.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the Planning Board. For the record, my name is Tom Gross, Supervisor of the Historic Preservation Section. So before beginning my presentation in earnest, I will preface it by saying late yesterday we did have a request from the property owner of one of these properties to withdraw their request for historic site designation. And in consultation with counsel, with Ms. Coleman, it was determined that we were in a position to honor that request. And so what I will instead present to you, although it's not reflected in your slides given the lateness of the request, I will be presenting to you a request for one historic site designation.
Thank you. And Mr. Gross, let me just say, commissioners, it's certainly an unusual situation, but council's advising that, you know, the bottom line is, regardless of what the Historic Preservation Commission done or what public hearings we've had, the applicant is making this request. The applicant can choose to pull back on the request. That seems pretty straightforward to me, and that's what happened. So unless there's any sort of strong objection to that, then what's before us is just one property, the Mount Hermon Masonic Temple.
Correct. Thank you. And I'll ask for Kenny's assistance in skipping through a few slides when it comes to that point. So with that, again, at its public hearing on July 23rd, 2024, the Historic Preservation Commission reviewed the documentation that was prepared for the Mount Hermon Masonic Temple, as well as the staff recommendation on the proposed designation. Based on this information and the support of the property owner applicant, the HPC recommended that the subject property be designated as a historic site based on the designation criteria of County Code Section 29-104A. Staff conveyed the HPC's recommendation at a joint public hearing held by the District Council and the Planning Board on September 10th, 2024, and no additional testimony was provided by the close of the joint public hearing record on September 25th, 2024. Next slide, please. I'll just very briefly review the HPC's recommendation for this property. The Mount Hermon Masonic Temple was constructed in 1893 in the Romanesque Revival style, the only example of such architecture in the city of Hyattsville. Next slide, please. The temple was built for and used by the Mount Hermon Lodge, a local Masonic chapter. Over the course of its long history, it has served as a meeting and function space for other organizations and community groups and as an architectural landmark within Hyattsville. Next slide, please. The Historic Preservation Commission recommended that the Mount Hermon Masonic Temple be designated as a historic site on the basis of 4 designation criteria of Section 29-104A, shown here on your slide. And if I could ask Kenny to forward to the last slide, I believe it's slide 8, since we're skipping over the second property. one more. Oh,
A bridge too far.
and one more. Thank you. So, I'll amend this text verbally as I go along. Should the Planning Board concur with the recommendation of the Historic Preservation Commission that the Mount Hermon Masonic Temple be designated as a Prince George's County Historic Site, staff will prepare a transmittal letter from the Planning Board to the District Council recommending historic site designation of that property. And this concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Gross. Commissioners, any questions for staff on this one item? No questions. Thank you, Mr. Gross. Job well done. And Commissioners, what's your pleasure in this item?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the recommendations or accept the recommendations of HPC staff and approve the Mount Hermon Masonic, make sure I get the right one, the Mount Hermon Masonic Temple as a historic designation and the subsequent transmittal letter to the District Council.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Washington, a second by Commissioner Giraldo. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, I'll call the roll. Commissioner Washington.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo.
Vote aye.
Commissioner Dorner.
Vote aye.
Vice Chair Bailey.
Vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Gross. Item 13 on our agenda is preliminary plan of subdivision 4-23040 Stevens Crossing at Brandywine. Item was continued from October 3rd, 2024 Planning Board meeting. This is also a evidentiary hearing, so if we have folks signed up to speak, I'll swear them in at the appropriate time. Mr. T.S. Campbell will give the staff presentation. Mr. Gibbs will be representing the applicant, I believe. Yes, there he is.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
And I'll turn it over to staff for the first presentation. Mr. Diaz Campbell.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. I'm Eddie Diaz Campbell, planner review of the subdivision. Item number 13 on the agenda is a preliminary plan submission for Stevens Crossing Brandywine.
I'm sorry, Mr. Diaz Campbell. You're going in and out for me. I'm not sure if it's just me.
No, it's me too. You're breaking up a bit.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Item number 13 on the agenda is a preliminary plan of subdivision for Stevens Crossing of Brandywine, 4-23040. This application was continued from October 3, 2024. The subject project proposes 75 lots and 13 parcels for development of 75 single-family attached dwellings. The application is subject to approved certificate of adequacy ADQ-2023-070C. The site is part of the overall Stevens Crossing development, which has been the subject of two prior preliminary plans, 4-11004 and 4-15011, as well as other conceptual site plan and detailed site plan approvals. This preliminary plan subdivision will supersede 4-11004 for the area within its boundaries only. The applicant submitted 4 exhibits prior to the noon deadline on October 15, 2024. Applicant's Exhibit 1 is a letter with requested modifications to the conditions of approval recommended in the technical staff report. Applicant's Exhibits 2 to 4 are a copy of the applicant's agreement with Prince George's County to construct certain road improvements in Brandywine, split into 2 main parts and a color phasing plan. Staff note that an additional exhibit was filed by the applicant, which is a letter appealing the approved certificate of adequacy and containing requested revisions to his conditions of approval. However, staff and the applicant agreed upon alternative revisions, and so the applicant withdrew the letter and appeal after staff published an administratively corrected certificate of adequacy, which reflected the agreed upon revisions. No citizens have provided any feedback or signed to speak on this case. Staff recommend adoption of the findings of the technical staff report, approval of Type 1 Tree Conservation Plan TCP 1-007-12-03, approval of a variance to Section 25-122B1G, and approval of the preliminary plan of subdivision, subject to conditions contained in the staff report, as modified by applicant's Exhibit 1, with the following additional modifications, which I will read into the record. On page 7 of the additional backup, in Condition 5, replace "for the property forming the subject of this application" with for the property forming the subject of this preliminary plan subdivision. On page 7 of the additional backup, in condition 6, replace for the property forming the subject of this application with for the property forming the subject of this preliminary plan subdivision. On page 8 of the additional backup, revise condition 12 so it reads as follows. Prior to the first final plat for this subdivision, the applicant and the applicant's heirs, successors, and/or assignees shall enter into an agreement with the Prince George's County Department of Parks and Recreation, DPR, which amends the timing for construction of the 8-foot wide trail/sidewalk and any required improvements on park property along the Brandywine Area Community Parks road frontage, as well as the 30-foot wide asphalt entrance and driveway and the 8-foot wide concrete trail connector from Cattail Way to the Southern Area Aquatics and Recreation Complex parking lot area, as set forth in the prior executed and recorded Recreation Facilities Agreement. This amendment shall advance the time for construction of the above improvements to require construction prior to approval of a building permit for the 437th residential dwelling unit. Time for submission of construction drawings, bonding, and permitting shall also be advanced to occur prior to issuance of the 288th, 48th, and 355th residential dwelling unit building permits respectively. Prior to submission of a final plat subdivision, the applicant shall submit 3 original executed agreements to DPR for review and approval. Upon approval by DPR, the agreement shall be recorded among the land records of Prince George's County, Upper Marlboro, Maryland, and the library and folio reflected on the final plat prior to recordation. This concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Diaz-Campbell. If there's no questions for staff.
A clarifying question?
Yes.
Mr. Diaz-Campbell, would you please affirm that the conditions you read into the record were 5, 6, and 12?
That is correct.
Thank you. That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. We'll turn to Mr. Gibbs. If you can introduce yourself for the record, and the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, members of the board. Edward Gibbs, an attorney with offices in Largo, and I'm very pleased to be here representing ESC Stevens LC, the owner of the property forming the subject matter of this application. So Stevens Crossing is a large mixed-use project. It consists of 169.5 acres. And it's for a multitude of different uses, townhomes. It was 2/2s, multifamily, and commercial, retail, and office. So this is just a small portion of the overall project. ESC Stevens purchased the land area, which supports the townhomes and the 2/2s. The original developer continues to own the balance of the entire project. And so this came about because ESC Stevens, which is wholly controlled by Elm Street Development, they wanted to change the 2/2s, 116 of them, to townhomes, which resulted in a decrease in the number of units, decrease in the number of trips, no adverse impacts. We had to do this as a singular new preliminary subdivision plan covering just this 4.51 acres of the property. Bear in mind, 169.5 overall. First of all, I can't begin to extol the virtues of your staff enough for what they did in this case. They had a staff report that they put forth in good faith. I had certain legal concerns with some of the conditions, and we were able to work through it to get to a revision of condition 12, which provided the Parks Department with the security that they needed, because when we reduced units, they wanted to then accelerate the time frame for the construction of the last phase of Cattail Way across Timothy Branch out to Missouri Avenue. And that is an entirely understandable goal. We just didn't want to have conflicting conditions because this is just a subdivision of 4.51 acres, and we have different trigger conditions elsewhere. We didn't want the conflicts, and so we were able to take care of it this way. So I can't say enough about the the ingenuity, the flexibility, and the willingness to work with us to arrive at this solution, which gives the Parks Department everything they wanted, yet doesn't create conflicts with other external documents. So I want to thank them very much. I agree with the changes that Mr. Diaz-Campbell read into the record. I do want to confirm, though, that staff also supports the deletion of conditions 7, 8, 13, and 14, which we had requested. Can I just get that confirmed, because I missed that?
Yes, Mr. Gibbs, that's confirmed.
Okay, great. So with that being said, my client, Jude Burke from ESC Stevens is on. Mike Lenhart is on, our traffic engineer, and our civil engineer, Tom Zyla, is on as well. But I don't think we need to get into any more depth. We are at one with staff, and once again, can't tell them how much I appreciate their understanding of the problems I had legally and how we solved them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbs. Commissioners, questions for the applicant? No questions. Do we have anyone else who has signed up to speak? Unless I'm missing it on my list, I don't see anyone outside members of the applicant's team. Oh, Brandon Searles. But I don't see Mr. Searles on the sign-up sheet. Staff, can you help me with this? This is an evidentiary hearing. We need folks who have signed up. Mr. Searles, give us 1 sec just so we can make sure we're doing things by the book. Actually, let me ask you, did you think you had signed up for this in advance before Tuesday?
Yes, I received an email. That's why I was able to get on this call. But I definitely need to speak on this.
Hold on for a second. Let me just check with staff to make sure we're not missing anything here.
Checking the list now, sir.
Okay, thank you. Good to see you again. Did I pronounce your name correctly this time?
You did last time.
Oh, I blew it this time?
No, you did. You always
okay, all right.
Pronounce it correctly. You're good. It's Searles. Yes.
Thank you. It's the little things in life, right?
Of course.
Give us 1 more sec. Hold on 1 sec. Mr. I want to make sure we get this right, so hold on. Let's take about a 3-minute break, because I need to find my administrator who can clarify this. Okay, so folks, we'll come back. We've actually been going for a bit. It's 1:20, and I know we don't have a whole lot before us, but let's take a 10-minute break. We'll come back at 1:30. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's Elon Musk.
Many.
It's always Elon Musk. I'm with you on that. For the record.
Are we going to do development in Jupiter, guys?
I know, exactly.
As long as I get some of those robots.
I know, right?
All right, let's see. It is almost 11:30. Let's give it another 30 seconds. 1:30.
I was going to say, where are you, Mr. Chairman? What part of the world?
2 hours behind, right? That would put me in what, Colorado?
Yeah.
Also put you down in Texas in some places, potentially, watching another rocket launch, right?
Good put it. That's right.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, I see some water behind you, though, Peter.
That's a parking lot.
Okay,
It
Manny.
is? I don't know.
That's just a reflection of the beautiful light blue sky off the window.
Oh, okay.
Either that or it's the pool outside the Ritz-Carlton in Miami where I've been hanging out. But,
Ah.
All right, it is 11:30. We are back from a brief recess. We're on preliminary plan of subdivision 4-23040 Stevens Crossing at Brandywine. We heard from the applicant. We heard from staff. The question was, Mr. Searles, will he have an opportunity to speak? Are you there, sir?
Yes, I am.
Okay, we do not have any record of you having signed up, but you are here, and out of an abundance of caution, we're going to err on the side of letting your voice be heard. Though, to be blunt, I'm not sure that you will be a person of record, but you're here, and so please speak. We'll give you up to 3 minutes. If you can introduce yourself for the record, name and address, and you can take it away.
Please be sworn in, Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you very much, Counsel. So if you could raise your right hand, sir. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that your testimony will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you're under oath, and take it away.
All right. Good afternoon. I'm Brandon Searles. I reside in Brandywine, Maryland, 8039 Graydon Lane. I am a father of 3 children that attend the schools in this area. I'm speaking because the abundance of development in this area have caused significant issues in the community, namely the school Brandywine Elementary, which is 130% over capacity to the point that the kindergarten had to be relocated to Baden Elementary, which has affected me because my youngest child is in elementary school and he started kindergarten this year. And because of all of the development, all of the new homes in the community, it's causing the school to be overcrowded. And we're not scheduled to get a new school into 3 years. It's going to take 3 years for the new school, which is scheduled to be built later this year. So any further development will cause further overcrowding, which unfortunately affecting transportation to the schools. The school bus he's supposed to be taking is 3 hours total between going to school and returning home. So you imagine a 5-year-old spending 3 hours on a bus every day because he had to be relocated due to overpopulation at the school. That is one of my concerns, in addition to the infrastructure just cannot support it. Brandywine Road is in terrible condition, and we have just an influx of traffic that's just unbelievable right now, and it's causing significant issues with transportation and school buses being able to get children to school on time, to the point that teachers have to delay their lessons because students are arriving late due to the school bus issue, as we know, with drivers right now, school bus drivers, there's an issue with that. And all of these new developments are adding routes to the school bus. So it's an impact. And Brandywine Elementary does not have walkers. So everyone has to have transportation to get to school because there's no sidewalks. There's no ability for students in the neighboring communities to even walk to school safely. So transportation is a significant impact, and any further development will cause even further issues in the community, and students and families are bearing the impact.
Mr. Searles, thank you very much. Appreciate you taking the time and being patient with us, and we hear you loud and clear about your concerns.
Thank you.
I need to put you on mute for 1 second. Mr. Searles, one thing, just to make sure we have all your information, can you in addition to identifying yourself, can you state your address for the record? We want to make sure that we get you all the information if you are determined to be a person of record.
It's 8039 Graydon Lane.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Thank you for making your voice heard. We hear your frustrations loud and clear. I don't mean to be at all flipper on this, but one of the things that's being proposed in this development is actually a slight lessening of density. So if that's any hint of comfort, that is what I heard from the applicant. So commissioners, any questions or comments related to Mr. Searles?
No, I'll sympathize with his frustrations with the school system. I have the same thing. I got 2 kids that go to schools. They go to different public schools. I have to drive. We have to drive our daughter to school because she would be sitting on the bus for an hour and a half, and she has special needs. And imagine having a special needs kid sitting there for an hour and a half. She started pulling her hair out of her head, and we had all sorts of behavioral challenges going forward. So I think this is something that's certainly, at least in my mind, in terms of how do we balance development and the school system. The unfortunate answer is that we don't have much control over the schools. What we do here, we can't really fund new schools and do that directly. So this is one of the challenges with local governments, is that we don't control all the moving parts, and we try to do what we can in terms of projecting forward what's going to happen, but it's not going to solve everything, and it's definitely not going to solve everything, unfortunately, overnight, which both you and I have to deal with as parents. So certainly appreciate you coming out and voicing those concerns, and definitely understand the challenges that you're going through, because I got the same thing with my daughter and my son. This year is coming home, thankfully, on time without too much of a delay, but in prior years, it would sometimes take an hour and a half for him to go 15 minutes, which is just terribly maddening as a parent to have your kid sitting on a bus for that long. So continue to be involved with this, and we'll try and do what we can on the backside to make a little more fluid connections between school and development. So thank you for coming out.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner, for that. Commissioners, there's no other questions or comments. There's no one else who signed up to speak. I do want to give the applicant the final word. So any rebuttal and close, Mr. Gibbs?
Not really, Mr. Chairman. I just would say that this is actually not a new project. The entitlements were first beginning to be put in place in 2012 with the approval of the conceptual site plan. And I would also note that my client is doing a $10 million improvement by building all 4 lanes of Mattawoman Drive through this property from Brandywine Road up to 301, along with a traffic light at 301, median brakes, extra turning lanes at 301, and this is substantially beyond what his requirement was. So there are going to be benefits coming as a result of this project, although I do understand Mr. Searles' concerns. So thank you very much. That's all that I would add.
All right, thank you, Mr. Gibbs. If there's no one else who's signed up to speak, we've heard from the applicant. I will close this public hearing. And commissioners, to you all for any deliberation, or if not, what is your pleasure in this item?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I also would like to thank you, Mr. Searles, for coming out and sharing your concerns. Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the findings of staff and approve preliminary plan 4-23040 TCP 1-007-12-03 and variance to section 25-122 B1G to include the conditions as outlined in staff's report and is further modified by applicant exhibit number 1, in addition to further modifications to conditions 5, 6, and 12 as read into the record by staff.
Second.
We've got a motion by Commissioner Washington, a second by Commissioner Dorner. Is there discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, I'll call the roll. Commissioner Washington.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Dorner.
I vote aye.
Vice Chair Bailey.
Vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo. That was a vote aye. I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 5-0. Thanks, everybody, for your participation and involvement on this item.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
And we have one final item on our agenda. This is item 14, preliminary plan of subdivision, PPS 2022-007, the Pavilion at Lotsford. This case was continued from October 3rd. We have Mr. Horn representing the applicant. We have Ms. Vatendust, who's going to be giving the staff presentation. I don't think there's any opposition on this item. It is an evidentiary hearing, so if we need to swear folks in, we'll do so at the appropriate time. And we'll start with the staff presentation. Ms. Vatendust.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. For the record, I'm Asa Vatendust with the subdivision section. Item number 14 on the agenda is a preliminary plan of subdivision for the Pavilion at Lutsford, case number PPS-2022-007. The subject project proposes one parcel for the development of 769 multifamily dwelling units, 72,300 square feet of commercial development, and 6,190 square feet of utility office. The application is subject to an approved certificate of adequacy, ADQ-2022-022. The case was previously continued from the planning board hearing date of October 3rd, 2024. The applicant submitted one exhibit prior to the noon deadline on October 15, 2025. The exhibit includes requested revisions to the staff recommended condition of approval. Staff is in agreement with the one requested revision. No citizens have provided any feedback or signed up to speak on this case. Based on the findings presented in the technical staff report, staff recommend that the planning board approve the preliminary plan of subdivision PPS-2022-007 and Type 1-3 Conservation Plan TCP1-020-2024, as well as the variance to the Section 25-122B1G, subject to the conditions contained in the staff report as modified by the applicant's Exhibit 1. This concludes the staff's presentation.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Ms. Vatendust. Any questions for staff before we turn to the applicant? No questions. Mr. Horn?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the planning board. For the record, Arthur Horn, the law office of Shipbill Horn here in Largo, Maryland. I'm here with my partner, Robert Antonetti, and our senior land planner, Mr. John Ferrante. We're here representing Banneker Ventures, LLC. The applicant in this case represented by Mr. Omar Kareem and Ms. Carrie Robertson. The property also has a lot that's owned by WMATA, and WMATA has signed off on us proceeding in this matter. The civil engineers in this case are from CPJ, Dr. Haitham Hajazi, Mr. Philip Hughes, Mr. Brian Hargis, Mr. Jason Dunlap. Our transportation engineers in this case are from Linhart Traffic Group, Mr. Michael Linhart, Mr. Dylan McAndrew. Although this is a preliminary plan only, I do want to introduce the architect that you'll see in the future for the DSP. That's from Perkins Eastman, is Mr. Paul Wilmar. Mr. Chairman, first I just want to thank Ms. Vatendust and also Mr. Gupta and Ms. Connor for working with the applicant throughout the processing of this subdivision application. In addition to working with the normal planning and the county and state agencies, the staff worked very closely with the county executive's office to ensure that their comments were addressed. This beautiful, almost 10-acre property that's zoned to RTO-HE is proposing over 700 residential units and up to 70,000 square feet of commercial, retail, office, and non-residential space. This site, as you know, is located directly across the street from the Wayne Curry Administration Building and right down the street from your beautiful park and planning offices on McCormick Drive. So after years of planning, this mixed-use project is exactly the type of development that the county and park and planning, and actually even the residents of Prince George's County had in mind in energizing the metro development within the Blue Line corridor with their envisioned 24-hour active area with residential, retail, medical, entertainment, and of course the government center here in downtown Largo. The applicant looked forward to bringing the site plan back before the planning board in the future to show the beautiful use that's going to come in the future. The applicant agrees with the ADQ and the Park and Planning staff report, inclusive of the variation request with that one minor edit that we've outlined as applicant's exhibit 1. The staff indicated that they agree with it, and that condition only allows us flexibility in addressing the WMATA building that's currently on site. Again, I introduced a whole bunch of people, the entire team, and they're only here if you had any questions, Mr. Chairman. So I know it's been a long day for everybody. I do want to end there and say that we're here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Horn. The hour is late, but I am curious. We have no one else who signed up to speak on this. But before I do, I'm wondering, Commissioners, if you want to take a few minutes and give either Mr. Horn or Mr. Kareem a hard time. I'm perfectly happy if you so choose. No?
I'll jump in and give them a hard time on bikes.
Okay.
And I know you're going to do a bike lane right there on the side of where Lotsford is. But to the extent that we can get just better biking in this area, it'd be fantastic. When I get off the metro to go up to like the joint hearings with the county council up in there, it's terrible trying to bike in this area. No one does it. There's parts coming out of the metro where like I have to ride over concrete that's broken up because they haven't bothered to actually fix the sidewalk. It's not terrible to ride on the streets, but it's also just not safe until you get those bike lanes in. But there's no bike share stations. It's almost like it's just off in its island, just not even connected to the metro. So when we talk about like metro accessibility or just like multimodal transit, it just honestly doesn't exist in that area very well. So to the extent that you can work with staff to make sure that it actually comes to fruition, that would be great. Because right now, like I'm struggling to see how anyone would want to bike in that area. And I only do it because I have to. I got to get to the meetings and different things like quickly. And I like to bike ride. And it's tough to like to bike ride in that area because it's just not very conducive to it. So if you can work with Mr. Ferrante to make sure that actually unveils itself well with those bike lanes and those bike racks and stuff, that would be phenomenal.
Well, and Mr. Dorner, Commissioner Dorner, there is a requirement for that in this application, and you'll be glad to know as part of this overall development, the roadway is being redesigned for both Lotsford and McCormick, including bike lanes, and they're actually cutting down the number of throughway roads from 2 to 1 or 3 to 2, I forget, but that's part of what your park and planning has been doing and working with the county executive's office, as well as DPOD, the whole design right around the downtown Largo with reference to the government area is being redesigned and changed. And the biking is a big part of that.
I definitely appreciate that. And just make sure when you guys are doing your construction, you don't like just chop off sidewalks, because that's what I'm dealing with right now is that like to get from the metro to the county buildings, you can't do it on sidewalks because somebody decided that they were going to scrape them up and mess them up. And if you're in a wheelchair, you got a stroller, like it's a lot harder to get around those things than it is for me on the bike. So appreciate the efforts on that. Just make sure that we have continuity. Like if you guys are going to do construction and tear up the sidewalks, ensure that it's easy for people to get off the sidewalk onto the ground, like a ramp or something, or there's some sort of like a platform over there where you can actually get across it if you have mobility kind of challenges.
I think most of us have seen the reports in College Park of what's going on with the Purple Line and how difficult it's been for the students, everybody to get around because of that. And that information is well taken. And,
thank you for that. Thank you, Commissioner. Much appreciated. Mr. Kareem, if you want to weigh in, I'm happy to swear you in. If you have anything you want to add. You're good to go? Okay, great. Commissioners, any other questions for the applicant? Seeing none, with no one else.
I have one question.
Yes.
Dog parks.
Commissioner?
You got it. I don't know of any dog parks in that area, Mr. Horn.
It is. The dog park is planned on the detailed site plan. If I could be so bold, Mr. Kareem, and give them a little preview of the detailed site plan is coming. But yes, sir, it is in your honor.
Thank you.
All right, you know your audience, folks. Much appreciated.
Indeed.
Okay, if there's no further questions or comments or discussion, I will close this public hearing. It is to us for deliberation, and if none, what is your pleasure, commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the findings of staff and approve preliminary plan PPS-2022-007, TCP1-020-2024, and variance to section 25-122B1G, subject to the conditions as outlined in staff's report and is further modified by applicant exhibit number 1.
Second.
We've got a motion by Commissioner Washington, a second by Vice Chair Bailey. Under discussion, I just want to say how I know this is just a preliminary plan, and we'll get more details when we get to the detailed site plan, assuming we approve this, which I think we will. How excited I am about the potential for this project being truly transformative for downtown Largo. So happy to hear more about it, and for us to do our part to make sure it is excellent as it moves forward, and to keep it moving along as well. Any other discussion, commissioners? Seeing none.
Agree.
Go ahead. Seeing none, I'll call the roll. Commissioner Washington.
I vote aye.
Vice Chair Bailey.
Vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Dorner.
Vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Kareem, Mr. Horn. Thank you, Ms. Hopkins. I believe that concludes all our items. Ms. Connor, any further business before us today?
No, that concludes the agenda. Thank you. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you. Good afternoon to everybody. Without objection, we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody, for your time today.
Bye, y'all.
See ya.
Bye.